Hey everybody, my name's Elizabeth and welcome back to my channel. Well, I'm still laid up with a broken leg. I went and saw the doctor today and he said that, it's still broken, it's healing, it's just the fibula specifically is healing a little slower. So I'm still supposed to, wear my boot and everything. And so it's, gonna be a while before I can get out and record new content. I figured now is a good time to do part 2 of my Vacationing Alone series and talk to you about the second trip that I took. Now, if you saw my last video about vacationing alone, you'll know that I took a trip to Disney World and Orlando by myself and spent a couple days with family, but then I did a large chunk of it at Disney World by myself and loved it. And after I took my trip to Orlando, I decided I need to start taking vacation, like actual vacations, more often. Because usually I would just use all my vacation days to go visit my parents or take a long weekend here at home or something like that and do kind of a staycation. I thought I need to start traveling more. Now that I know that I can do it by myself and have a good time, I need to do it more. And so I decided every 2 years I'm going to take a vacation. So once my Disney World trip was over, I started thinking about where I wanted to go next, and it took me maybe 10 minutes to decide what I wanted to do next, and that was take an Alaskan cruise. Now, I had been on an Alaskan cruise before. When I was a kid, my parents took my brother and I on an Alaskan cruise, and it was because, if I remember correctly, it was because they found a deal. It was the last cruise of the season, so it was in September. And the deal was, hey, kids get to go free if, parents come, so my parents had to pay for themselves, but then my brother and I got to go for free. Cause we were under 12 or something. I don't remember what it was. I didn't pay attention. I was a kid. I just, I went on, I went on the vacation. So I had these memories of it. And thinking, well, that was kind of cool, but young enough that I didn't really appreciate it. I wasn't super young, I was probably in 6th grade or something like that. But I didn't have the appreciation for the beauty and the nature and the history and all that kind of stuff. And so I really wanted to go back and experience it as an adult when I could actually appreciate all those things. And so I decided that's where I was going. Well, I let some family members know who I'm not gonna give, my relation or anything because they've asked me not to. And I said, hey, I'm going on an Alaskan cruise in 2 years. And that's about all I got out before they were like, we'll go with you. I was getting there. I was going to invite them to come with me, but it was kind of funny because they knew where I was going and they just jumped in and they're like, absolutely, we'll go. So I did not go on this vacation alone, but I did a lot of stuff alone. And so the reason I want to tell you guys about it is because it might be a good stepping stone for a lot of people before you actually go out and do something completely on your own, is to kind of have an experience like I had on my Alaskan cruise. So when planning the cruise, my relatives let me pick out which one. I okayed it, with them. I said, hey, this is the one I'd really like to do. Is that okay? And they said yes. And so we planned it, we got our rooms and everything. And then I started looking into what kind of excursions I wanted to do and things like that. And it became pretty clear pretty quick that we were not going to want to do the same things. And that was okay. They were a couple and I was by myself, and it was just understood from the beginning, we do not have to do everything together. And so I would encourage you, if you're hoping to maybe work up to doing something by yourself, or you're looking to go on a vacation with some friends or family members, to be okay with doing things by yourself. Because first of all, if you're not okay with that, you might miss out on a lot. For example, I decided that when we were in Ketchikan, there were a couple things that I wanted to do. There was a tour of the local national park where were a lot of authentic recreations of totem poles. And so you got like a guided tour, and they would tell you the stories behind them and all that kind of stuff. And then, oh, it was a two-parter. So that was the first half of this excursion. And then they took you into town and you got to see the lumberjack show. And I so wanted to see the lumberjack show. I just wanted to see all these very like bearded, flannel wearing men, I don't know, throw axes and hack at logs and stuff like that. Like, I really wanted to see that. I thought that was gonna be so fun. And so I knew that like months before our, vacation. I told my relatives, I was like, I want to do this very badly. And they were like, yeah, we're not interested. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I was like, I'm going to do it. Is that okay? And they said yes. And so I did it, and I had so much fun. When we were at the, of course I was there, it was part of a tour. So there were other people there, and, mostly we were just listening to the tour guide, but there were points, when I would like chat with a nice couple next to me or something like that, and, I've said it many times before in my videos, but if you don't act awkward when you're by yourself, nobody will look at you weird. It's when people start to act weird when you're by yourself, or like you're uncomfortable, that other people are going to be uncomfortable around you. So just don't do that. Like, learn to fake it. Even if you feel uncomfortable, learn to fake it until you feel comfortable. And so anyway, yeah, I would chat with them. And then, once we were at the lumberjack show, like, you're just in the audience watching. And so it didn't matter that I was by myself. So I had so much fun. I didn't care that I was doing it by themselves. My relatives kind of explored the town. And they, were able to just experience like a more low key, version of that port of call. And the other thing you have to remember, if you're going with people and you're going, you're paying for yourself, you're single and other people are going, they might be paying for two people. And that's a lot of what it was with me and my relatives, is that, I would look at a price and I'd be like, oh, it's only $60. And they would look at it and they're like, that's $120, And so it immediately changes things. I'm paying for one person and thinking like, oh, it's vacation. That's okay if I, splurge a little bit for that one thing. And then, of course, a family or a couple even is paying much, much more than I do as a single person. Look at that as a good thing, while you're single. That's why it's a good thing to go out and do things while you are single, because once you do get married and start having a family, everything gets more expensive because you're paying for a lot more people. So, try not to have the mindset of like, oh, when I get married, or oh, when I have a family, then I'll do this stuff. Not that, of course, you should do stuff with your, once you get married and have a family, but remember how much more expensive stuff is going to be at that point. So don't be afraid to experience some of it by yourself before then, because you might want to do stuff that maybe your spouse doesn't want to do or your family has no interest in. So don't be afraid to do stuff by yourself. And then if you really love it, you can go back with your family when, once we get married and have a family. And so one other thing I did that while I was in Ketchikan was I was able to go to a little seafood place that had some Dungeness crab on the menu. And that was one thing that I really wanted to do while I was in Alaska. I love crab, but I had never tried Dungeness crab before. And I thought, I want to try it when I'm out in Alaska, because that's what they're known for. So I found a little place, like just a little, I mean, they were popular, but it was just like a little like hole in the wall kind of place, and ordered myself some Dungeness crab and ate it, and it was expensive, but it was delicious and it was fun, and it was fun for me to try that. Yeah, I gotta try all these fun things by myself. But then, like, once we were back on the ship in the evening, we, went to the dining room together and we had our meal together and all that kind of stuff. So we did spend a good part of our time when we were on the cruise together, but then we would go split off and do our own thing. And a lot of times that would happen in the evening, like after dinner. My relatives, a lot of times they were like, let's go look at the sunset and then we're going to go to bed. And I was like, well, yeah, but there's a comedian or there's this musical act that I want to see. And so I, a lot of times would stay up, not late, because let's be real, I'm 40, or I was 39 at the time. And I like to go to bed early, but not that early, you know? And so they would go to bed or go, just relax in their stateroom. And I would go see a comedian, or I would go, see a musical act or whatever, and just experience more of what the ship had to offer. And I did it by myself. And, I would order, like a mocktail or something like that and just kind of enjoy the entertainment. And I had fun doing that. Now I would say we went on a princess cruise, which is they're a good cruise line. They have pretty good food. I think they're one of the more highly ranked among the not luxury. It's just a basic cruise line, but they're like, I think considered, one of the better ranked ones. But they are known as being like a cruise line for older people. And I think that's true because I was 39 at the time and I was probably in the bottom 2% of it. Most people were 70 and above, and there were very few people like my age. So even if I had been looking to like meet somebody or even just a friend or something, that was not going to happen, unless I was, looking for a rich older husband or something like that. That was not going to happen. So, that was just one thing. Like I would do that cruise line again, but at the same time, it's like, I do feel a little young, for this group of people, but it was fine. And I'm someone, because I am not a partier, that it was really okay. And I would rather have like really good food than trade it for something like, what's, one of the party cruise lines like Carnival or, Celebrity or whatever those ones are that, are known for their parties and for like their young atmosphere. I'd rather have really good food and a quieter atmosphere than average food and a lot of young people running around making me feel insecure. So if you guys are not ready to do a full trip like I talked about last time by yourself, look into doing something maybe more like this, where you are going with people, but it's understood beforehand, hey, we're going to split off and do things by ourselves. That way, you still have the comfort of having people around, but then you are challenging yourself by going out and doing things by yourself. And plan them in advance. If you're going on a trip with friends, say, hey, listen, I'm gonna go do this by myself one night, and plan the night, that way you don't back out just because you don't want to at the time. It's easy to like say you're gonna do something, but if you don't have a specific plan, you find yourself backing out, not actually going through with it. Well, let me show you some of the pictures that I took on the cruise. I will try to restrain myself and not show you all of the hundreds of pictures I took because I was in Alaska and it was gorgeous. I won't show you everything, but I will probably show you a lot. So enjoy. Well, that was my trip to Alaska. I should say that even though I did go with family, I was determined that I was going to do that no matter what. So even if they hadn't been available or hadn't been interested in going, I was going on that cruise no matter what. And so, yeah, I got lucky that I did have some family that wanted to go with me because, even though I do travel and do all kinds of stuff by myself, having someone there is always, is always nice. And so it was great to have them. But yeah, I was definitely prepared to go by myself if I had to. So, well, I am actively planning my next trip. Something for me to look forward to while I'm here with my broken leg. But it's not going to be until early next year. So hopefully you guys stick with me until then, because I will definitely be vlogging all of it. But I'm not going to tell you where I'm going because I don't want to spoil the surprise. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, give it a like and a subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.